Today, I will be looking at game number 12 from Bobby Fischer's My 60 Memorable Games. It's hard to believe, 12 games already memorized. Later in this video, what I'll be trying to do is to play the Gligoric versus Fischer game completely from memory. I'm using memorization as a tool to learn the games, to understand the games, so that I can become a better chess player. Will it work, and will I be able to memorize all 60 of Bobby Fischer's games? I don't know. We'll find out. If you look at the screen, you'll see I've highlighted 3 different games. The ECO code says one's a B92 and the other 2 are B99. That means they're all Najdorfs. I thought it would be interesting to look at these 3 games and compare them to see how they are the same and to see how they differ one from another. So if I right-click here in ChessBase and I go to Merge Selected Games, this will bring all the games together into one PGN file. With the games merged, we'll now play through them. First up will be the Gligoric-Fischer game. And there it is, the A6 move. That's a Najdorf. Gligoric played bishop to E2, the Opusensky variation. Now, if you give the Najdorf player a chance, he will play E5, and Fischer does exactly that. But what is the character of this game? How would you describe it? To me, it just looks like a pretty standard game, a pretty standard fight for the center, really. Both players are developing their pieces, both players have castled kingside, and in the end, it's just heading towards the endgame. Bobby does have a minority attack on the queen side. And there we go. I think even Larry Evans had something to say about this game, that it was a little bit, well, my word would be uninspiring. But yeah, and that's kind of true. It's just really a chess game. All right, let's go back now and let's look at the second game, which is the Walther game. Now there is the Najdorf. And Walther did not play the Opusensky. He played instead bishop to G5. Bishop to G5 prevents or certainly dissuades black from playing E5. That's part of the goal of playing bishop to G5. And notice here that the queen comes out to F3. Walther plays bishop to D3, a developing move, but he's certainly not attacking just yet. There's the exchange of the F6 knight, and don't want to miss this, Walther puts his rook onto E1. And Walther even has time to play king to B1. And what we see in this game is predominantly an attack down the center. After all, the rooks are on D1 and E1. And the knight comes on to D5. Notice also, Bobby's king is stuck in the center. Eventually, it will get over onto B8. And so I would just say this game is white attacking down the center and black's king getting stuck in the middle. And it goes on, eventually into an endgame, which sadly for Walther, he did not win. All right, let's go back now and look at the game for today, Gligoric and Fischer. Now there's bishop to G5. They both play that. Aha, and here is where Gligoric plays g4 rather than Walther's bishop to d3. There's the typical b5 move in the Najdorf, and here comes the removal of the knight on f6. And Gligoric makes an immediate attack, f5. Bobby castles kingside. And so this looks to be like a much more aggressive game than either the Pilnik game or the Walther game. The attack is somewhat in the center, but I would say with that g-pawn having been removed, the attack is really coming down the king side. And it might be noticed that Black really doesn't have much of an attack at all against the white king. I mean, the white king hasn't even bothered to move off of c1 over onto b1. Why bother when you're not being attacked? Well, I thought it was interesting to compare those three games. All three of them, even though they're Najdorfs, have a very different character. Now, that doesn't surprise us. We know that within any particular opening system, there can be many variations of a different character. But since I'm looking at these games, it is something that I wanted to do and understand. Well, my primary goal now is to play this game from memory. Let me open up Lucas Chess and give it a go. All right, I've got Lucas Chess open and the Memorize a Game feature, and it's time to look at the Gligoric-Fischer game. You'll see here that it's 114 movements. That's ply or half moves, so there will be 114 moves that I will have to play. And yep, this is the game, 1959, Gligoric versus Fischer. I'll click Learn. And you see here, I've been studying this for a couple of days, and when I first started, I had 26 errors. Hopefully, I won't have that many today. Fischer is playing the black pieces, so I will orient the board with the black side down. I'm playing both white and black. Okay, let's see if you can see this. Yep, I guess that looks pretty good. Okay, here we go. It's a Najdorf. Let's get that on the board. Knight to f6, virtually forcing knight to c3. And then comes the signature Najdorf move, a6. Now comes 6, bishop g5. e6, f4, bishop e7, queen f3. Black plays queen c2. Gligoric takes the first opportunity to castle. And the knight comes to d2, knight on b to d2, to d7. Now comes the immediate. No. Is that right? Yes, the immediate g4. Walther would have played something like bishop to d3. b5. And white now takes off the knight on f6. Bishop takes knight on f6. In the Walther game, Fischer took with the knight. Now he takes with the G pawn. And it's an immediate attack. F5. Now, the pawn does move forward and attack, but when it moves forward, it creates a hole. Fischer plays the knight to the now available E5 square, attacking the queen, and the queen skedaddles. Bobby castles kingside. It looks scary. This knight is going to make a journey, something like this. Not all in one go, but okay, Bobby moves his king over. The knight comes up onto F4, and now Bobby moves the rook over. That does make sense to me because, I mean, this G file looks really dangerous. But with this knight sitting here, you know, one can't help but imagine this knight coming on to G6. Fortunately, this pawn is here because this pawn is pinned. Gligoric moves his rook now. And Bobby advances his pawn to D5. This is the best computer move. Pawn takes. Pawn takes. Now the knight will continue its journey. The pawn here this looks pretty dangerous. So that pawn does not move. Knight comes here, attacking the queen. The queen is defending the bishop and must continue to do so. Queen takes the pawn. Now, this D8 square was being guarded by the queen, but it is no longer being guarded by the queen. Gligoric hopes to take advantage of it. He moves his queen to H6. If the rook could get down here, there is the possibility of distracting this rook on G8 away. For example, if the bishop came up to D7 after that, you could take the rook over here on A8 and just, if this rook went over and took, you would have a nice little checkmate. So in order to defend the D8 square, the bishop comes up, blocking. The rook still comes down, however, just not able to get onto D8, but it is making a rather ominous attack on the queen. Bobby defends the queen tactically by taking the pawn here on G4 and also attacking the queen. Gligoric elects to take the knight. and therefore the queen has to come up here and take as well. But then rook takes rook, rook takes rook, and rook takes pawn on f6. Then we're going to get, Bobby decides to offer the queen. Gligoric agrees. Let's take the queens off, and Gligoric wins a pawn, but that only brings him up to equal now. 4 pawns to 4 pawns. Bishop comes up. Kings are to be activated during the endgame. Now that the bishop no longer has to guard the pawn because the rook is doing it, Bobby advances his pawn. We've got these 2 pieces attacking here. Rook comes over to give some defense for the king. Defending rook to c7, defending the pawn on c2, and Bobby offers the bishops. The rook comes down attacking. It must advance because the rook here cannot defend. Bobby defends. And the pawn is won. With both white pawns on the 3rd rank, Bobby decides to take the h2 pawn. With this file now open, the king comes onto it. King will take the a pawn, and Bobby comes over, keep things in balance. Gligoric would like to get into a Lucena position. Oh, no, the rook comes over first. All right, there's one error. Rook comes over. Gligoric tries one more little trick, and hopefully you know your king and pawn versus king endgames well enough to know that black has one move here to hold the draw. Any other move loses. It all has to do with understanding the opposition. And here then is the draw. Game over. All right. One error, not bad, not bad. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you got something out of it. And if you liked it, give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more content, go ahead and subscribe. Thanks very much, and we'll talk to you later.